wife went in here, so film a little bit. Again, it's very quiet. And this is like 12:30 on a Saturday. There's busy streets, but in the downtown area, it's very low key. Here are some more random shots of downtown Santa Fe looking west. And they really did a great job of having floral bouquets at this motel that's right in the downtown area. And this is looking down a row of shops. I forget which street this is on, but everything is very low key, very quiet. This is a Saturday morning when this picture was taken, later in the morning, so people were out, but it was not teeming or overrun with traffic. That was one thing I liked about Santa Fe, at least in the downtown area. And I thought this was a cool sign. Live fast, die old, buy local, and American made. So that was a good message, I thought. And there's some housing downtown, again with that adobe style that's so common. And this was a cool thing. It's right outside of a gallery, but it's salmon swimming upstream, jumping out of the ground. I've seen a similar type art exhibit in White Plains, New York, way across the country. So it's not totally original, but it's still cool. And then this is just one outdoor eating area in a restaurant called La Boca, which in Spanish means the mouth, which is an interesting name for a restaurant. And just one observation, I didn't take a lot of pictures to demonstrate this point, but if you look at the folks that are sitting there in the outdoor dining area, they're kind of representative of the age group that we saw a lot of in Santa Fe. I was kind of expecting it, but also kind of surprised to see that there's a lot of people in their 70s in Santa Fe. Maybe it trends younger during the summer months, I don't know, but we saw a lot of older folks in Santa Fe, so it must be a place where a lot of people retire, but nice place to retire too.
Old Santa Fe Trail.
When we were in Santa Fe, this is where we stayed, the El Dorado Hotel, very nice hotel, big hotel, and this was in late September, early October, so it was still nice and warm out when we were there, but their swimming pool was drained, couldn't use that. So that was one thing that was sort of missing from the experience, but we wanted to go out and see the sights anyway. So this was a nice central location right in downtown Santa Fe. And we had a nice room and very well appointed. They had a fireplace, but I guess it wasn't cold enough, so that wasn't usable. It was just nice to look at and nice artwork. We had a little tiny deck we could sit out. It was nice, and we were facing north, so our views to the north, so this is looking northeast, and so there's beautiful hills in the distance. That's one advantage, I think, of living in a community or staying in a community like this that's surrounded by mountains, is if you're higher up above the tree line and you can see over the surrounding buildings, then you have some fantastic views. But if you're looking to live in a place like Santa Fe, you have to choose your spots, because you could be living in a nice area, but you might not be able to see the mountains from where you live because of trees in the neighborhood, or view is blocked by surrounding neighbors. So anyway, you got to be a little picky. But as you can see, looking here toward the northeast, there are nice homes that go up the hillside. As you do that, sure, they're going to be more expensive, but you're going to have really nice views. So more views looking out in this direction, beautiful with the clouds. And where we stayed was right near the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, right on the little side street behind us, so I'll show that in a later clip. And then this is one house that caught my eye, so I used the telephoto to take it. You don't see too many Victorians in Santa Fe. Remember, most of the things are southwestern, adobe style, so this was a little Victorian, be cute to live in. This is looking northwest, so this is a long hallway that we had to walk through to get to the elevator and go down to the street. I think we were on the top floor, the 6th floor. And then when you come out, you're right on the main street, or one of the main streets, San Francisco Street, and walk up towards the east to the downtown area. And not too far up the street was the Lensic Theater, which had live performances. And first night we were there, Jack White was playing there. So he's a pretty big name. My wife wanted to go, but the show was sold out. And then a couple nights later was going to be, she's a French pianist. She lives in the U.S. now. I think she's American. She's from France originally, Helene Grimaud. And this is Helene. It's too bad that they didn't put the E end of Helene on the marquee. So anyway, she deserved better than that. And this is a view looking east up the street with a church at the end of the street.
I think I need to
One thing about Santa Fe is we went out there to sort of take a look at could we possibly ever move there. I've known other people from the New York area that have moved to Santa Fe and to Albuquerque, and they've loved it, and weather is certainly nice and everything. So we didn't really go there to take a look at houses, but since we came back, I was just curious as to what the housing prices were in Santa Fe. We've been to other western cities, like we went to Reno, Nevada a couple of years ago, and kind of looking at would we ever possibly move there, but we found that the housing cost was way more than what it should be. Like, it was too close to California, and there were people that were really moving from California that were really driving up the prices there. And I've heard that's true of a lot of other western cities, that the real estate's really shot up because people are looking for cheaper housing when they have money to spend, having made a lot of money in California. So we were taking a look, but we thought it was the same thing with Santa Fe, that it might be just totally out of our price range. But in looking at Zillow, I found some houses that would give me hope if I was interested. Maybe we'll take a second look sometime at Santa Fe. So this is just an example. I just picked a couple of houses for fun just to show what the rough order of magnitude costs are. This was an attractive house in southwest Santa Fe. Santa Fe, it has the compact downtown area that's very low key, and then it has more of a suburban feel that stretches to the south and west. So this is in the southwestern area of Santa Fe, maybe where the housing prices are a little cheaper, but it still look nice. And most of the homes are built in the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. So this was a 469,000 3-bedroom, almost 2,000 square feet, third of an acre. One thing that coming from where we live in New Jersey, and it's also true in suburban New York, in New York State, is the property taxes are so high. So to us, $2,200 a year in taxes and homeowner association fees, $2,200 total is not much. It's way less than what we're used to paying. So this just shows you what I thought was a very attractive living room with sort of double height, a lot of window, a lot of interesting Pueblo style, southwestern style architecture. Here's an aerial view. I think it's looking south. And one thing that I also would value a lot if I moved out west would be I'd want to have a view of mountains from my house. I would not want to live in an area, I mean, I like trees, but I wouldn't want to live where there's so many trees that you can't even see the mountains or anything from your house. So that was one thing we noticed in Reno, where it's very dramatic scenery, but a lot of the streets could be in anywhere USA. They could be in Des Moines, Iowa, because you can't really see the hills because it's blocked by the trees. So a lot of the houses I've sort of taken a look at, I didn't look at every house in the market on Zillow, but a lot of them seem to have roof decks or second story patios, so you're raised up, so you have a better chance of looking over the houses of your neighbors and seeing mountains in the distance, which I think is a nice feature. So here's an example of a second story patio that we can look out and have a view, and that'd be a great view to see mountains in the distance. I also think if you lived here, it'd be nice to have an e-bike to get around. It's pretty flat in this area of Santa Fe, so you could run chores or whatever, not have to drive a car, which would be nice. And here's another house, also in southwest Santa Fe, a little bit closer to the downtown, and it's a little smaller, 3-bedroom, 1,250 square feet, only a tenth of an acre, but it's 417,000, so it's not breaking the bank. Taxes and homeowner association fees are a little higher for some reason at $2,800 a year, but for a small house, it packs a lot of punch. It's got a lot of windows that open things up. And then if this isn't your thing, if you're slumming it in the 400,000 range, you could always take a look at this house on Old Santa Fe Trail east of downtown Santa Fe. It would only cost $17.5 million. I think they dropped the price from 20 plus million, and you'd only have to pay 110,000 a year in taxes, but you'd have 18,000 plus square feet, and you'd have 21 bedrooms and 26 bathrooms, a 10-car garage, a greenhouse, all on 20 acres, and you'd have 2 guest houses on the property and a lodge. And I looked up who used to live here, who lived in such a house Well, it turns out it was the co-founder of Microsoft, Paul Allen, passed away a couple of years ago. And I don't know if anybody's lived in the house since, but that's the kind of money we're talking. And also, the artist Georgia O'Keeffe once lived here, but I don't know if she lived here, if she was the main owner or what or anything. But anyway, all right. Let's get back more to reality, but this is North Santa Fe in an area that we walked around somewhat. We didn't get this far out, but this house, it's in foreclosure and 789,000. I believe the price has dropped to get to this level, and Zillow thinks it's worth $1 million or more. 4 bedroom, 4 bath, 3,400 square feet on a third of an acre, about 5,000 a year in taxes. And because it's a 2-3 story house, these are some of the views you have looking out, which is fantastic. I think this would be looking west towards the mountains in the distance. And this photo just shows that they do have snow in the winter. So Santa Fe is at elevation. It's more than a mile high. So you are going to have snow, even though it's kind of an arid climate and dry. And this is just a shot. It is an interesting interior, I thought also. So you get a lot. You probably would pay a lot more than this in the New York area, for example, and maybe in a lot of areas. So I thought it was interesting. It all piques my interest. And then I'll show you one more house. You could go on and on. I found it all interesting. But this is on a nice, I think, prestigious road, well-known road, Upper Canyon Road, North Santa Fe. And this has 2 acres and 4,400 square feet, 4 bedroom, 5 bath. And the taxes are more. It's more New York, New Jersey area. Level taxes, $12,000 a year. But this still would be considered cheap where I live in terms of taxes. But it's a nice house, and I could look at all the pictures and just have house envy. But my overall conclusion is that I think there is a possibility of something that is nice, yet not in the stratosphere like so many other Western cities. And I was only thinking that maybe it's because New Mexico is just a little bit further away from California. Maybe it's like a flyover state to people from California. They fly over New Mexico to move to Texas because Austin is very hot. And the other thing that Santa Fe might have going against it, as nice of a town as it is, there's beautiful scenery around, but there's just not any other comparable town except for maybe Taos. But Taos is a good distance away, a lot smaller, and kind of a different vibe, which I'll show in another video. But I don't know. I think Santa Fe, there is a possibility that you might find something that you're looking for. And I think the town has a lot going for it, including the downtown. So just a thought, just thought I'd add this to the video. When we were walking around the downtown area of Santa Fe in a part that's a little bit to the north, maybe, of the commercial area, we came across this statue. It was in front of some government building. I forget which, whether it was a city building or a federal building, but it's of a 12-foot tall or more statue of a soldier. It's an unusual look because he's smiling. And so we wanted to read about what the statue was, what's the significance here. And here he is facing us with his hand outstretched to shake our hand. So we looked down, we read about Staff Sergeant Leroy Petrie, who is from Santa Fe, and he became honored by receiving the Medal of Honor from the president, and he served in Afghanistan. But reading this, I didn't know whether he was still living or if he was killed in action. He did a gallant thing by grabbing a grenade that was thrown by the enemy and throwing it back and saving some of his fellow Army soldiers. So I had to learn more about this when I got back, and it turned out he did receive the Medal of Honor, and he is still living, thank God. So here's President Obama bestowing the medal on him. And I went on the website to learn more about it, and you can too. And I started with Wikipedia, and then it had a link to the official speech by President Obama, and it was very well done. The whole ceremony was well done. I encourage you to read more about Staff Sergeant Petrie, but he's in his 40s now, and one thing I learned from what happened was he was injured when he went to throw the grenade. He cleared it away from his comrades, but he was injured in the process, and he lost his hand, and he actually stayed cool and calm through the whole thing and tied a tourniquet onto his arm to stop the bleeding, but they had to amputate his hand. So he now has looks like almost a robotic hand. So he's a real hero that lives among all of us. I believe he still lives in Santa Fe. He's from there originally. So here's the statue again, and that's why he has kind of an unusual silver metal hand reaching out to shake your hand. Really a nice statue, nice way to do it, and one that all Americans can be proud of. So, of course, you can't talk about Santa Fe, New Mexico without talking about its art scene. It is the second or third biggest art center in the United States, right up there with New York and San Francisco. So, of course, we had to go to the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, which was right across the street from our hotel. And there's some books about Georgia. She's the only female artist I know that would have her works displayed in a separate museum, which you can go to in Santa Fe. So she might be the number one artist of all female artists, at least in the US. And these postcards show some of her work. She was enamored with New Mexico. She and her husband moved from New York to New Mexico, and where she spent the rest of her life. So we paid to, you had to make reservations. You could do it an hour or two ahead of time. And it was interesting to look at various art. It was well attended. There was a good crowd there. Just some of her work. But art is not to just be found in galleries or museums. So there's art a lot of places. They're just unique ways of doing things. So this was an interesting statue, as was this. And we took the opportunity to sit in the swing that is suspended from this very large dog. First my wife, and then me. And there's just different ways. I've never seen a grill around a tree like this before. Maybe it exists, maybe it's common, but it just caught my eye. Little details. This is the Santa Fe Railroad logo, and it's a bike rack. I just thought it was cool. Nice. Little touches everywhere. There's an attention to detail in art, which I appreciate. And this is not an artistic thing, but it was unique to me coming from New Jersey and not seeing anything like this in New York or New Jersey, where you can vote ahead of time and you just drop your ballot off in the drop box. I thought that was interesting. Maybe it'll be much more common in the US in the coming years. And there's a lot of flowers in Santa Fe. As you can see, there weren't too many people on the sidewalk in this juncture, but it wasn't overrun with people except when maybe tour buses stopped and a lot of people in the upper age group getting off the buses to go tour churches and whatnot. We tended to look at some of the neighborhood around the downtown rather than just going to the famous square that you see in every other YouTube video where Native Americans or Mexican Americans come to sell their wares on the square. I never saw that square. My wife said it wasn't worth it to go by it. I mean, so I guess I saw it already watching videos. And so we looked at other things that maybe not everybody from out of town goes to see. So this was just a courthouse. I thought it was nice. This was a school. And this was a federal building slash post office, which I thought was really nice. These are real southwestern New Mexico colors, and I just thought it was really an attractive building. It's the most attractive post office I think I've seen in a long time. Named after Joseph M. Montoya. And even the parking garages I thought were attractive. We saw a couple and they were attractive, kind of Adobe style. So a lot of nice things to appreciate in Santa Fe. And then we walked around a neighborhood of smaller houses. Some were used as professional offices, but really close to the downtown. Attractive, but not over the top. This gives you a sampling of various homes. This one was a very small home next to a slightly larger home. So they're not all big mansions or anything, but interesting, just unique. And that Adobe style that you see everywhere, this color palette, just different. So it was interesting to us. Again, another Adobe style. And these are older homes. I think they're from the 1800s, what the original architecture looked like when Santa Fe first started to be built. Kind of squarish, made out of brick. This typical street scene. This is just a block or two north of downtown Santa Fe. And this is a house that's being used for some sort of professional purpose. Very attractive house. I don't know. These houses all might be really expensive. I didn't check Zillow for the prices in this neighborhood, but it's nice. Everything's well kept. This is one of those older style homes, and I think it's now being used for something else, along with a historic plaque to go to describe it. So this is the overall layout of Santa Fe. And one of the final thoughts I'd like to mention was just that Santa Fe's downtown can be nice because there's not a super highway cutting right by it. Where we stayed, most of the the area that I showed you is where the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum is indicated on this map, sort of the center north part of Santa Fe. And as you can see, and as I showed earlier, the city does sort of sprawl to the south and west. But the highway that comes up from Albuquerque, comes up from Las Cruces, goes up the state. I don't know whether it was intentional, but it is made to curve around Santa Fe and not go right by it. Like I've seen with so many cities that are nice, but then the highway is right there. And I think a major highway going right by it downtown sort of gives the feeling like, well, the downtown isn't worth it. It's more important for people to whiz through the downtown than be diverted farther away from it. So that's one of the things that makes Santa Fe really nice. There's no major highways plowing their way through regular neighborhoods and kind of ruining the feel. It's got a really nice feel. And those mountains, they're there. If you are in the right vantage point, it's a great scene. So it's a great setting. And Santa Fe has so much going for it and possibly affordable housing prices, just possibly. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.